I want to have kind of an open segment here and discuss something that's been on the minds of a lot of fans this weekend. And Brandon, of course, will bring you back in here for that. NASCAR and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's been a strained relationship really for the last decade and a half, ever since the 2008 Brickyard 400 and that whole tire debacle that led to a very, very bad race with multiple competition cautions that came even more frequently than they were expecting going into the race. Probably reminded some fans of the 2005 United States Grand Prix with those tire issues. But Brandon, I'll go to you first here. What was your reaction to the past race weekend at IMS on the road course? Do you think the Brickyard 400 should come back? Should we go back to the oval? Should they leave IMS entirely and go down to IRP just down the road? What do you think should happen?
Well, my first inclination is to look at a tweet like Kevin Harvick's and think, oh, it's just a guy that's complaining because he's had success at Indianapolis on the oval, and now that he doesn't have success with the road course, he's just complaining about it. But I think there's a lot of ground to what he said. I forgot exactly what he said, but it was to the point that like we're disrespecting this place by not being on the oval. We need to go back to the oval, and we're wasting our time here if we don't. And so, in so many words, and I think I completely agree with that. And I think the conversation you and I had before the show went on is to that point that we need to get this out of being in its gimmicky stage right now and treat this place with respect. It is the racing capital of the world, and we're not going to be on the oval. If NASCAR is not giving itself enough respect by not being on the oval is what the issue is here. And I know they're not going to be able to fill all the seats like they did in '94, but they need to try to get back on the oval, give this Gen 7 car a chance, at least on the oval, and see what kind of racing product it can put on. And if it does, then the fans will return. I mean, there's a pretty good turnout there for the road course with the seating that they have. And, give it another few years or so, maybe to 2030 or so, like you said. And if things come to that and it's still not delivering, then it's time to leave Indianapolis. I mean, we beat this dead horse way too long, but that's probably not the way it's going to go because there's too much money involved, unfortunately.
Well, I found the direct quote from Harvick. It was from Daniel McFadden tweeting it out a couple of days ago. Harvick said, quote, "Not running on the oval is embarrassing for our series." And a friend of the show, Matthew Owens from USRN, Josh, I know you know him and worked with him quite a bit this year as well. Matthew was tweeting out all week, "Bring the Brickyard 400 back. We need to go back to the oval." He was so upset yesterday that he said he's changed his mind. NASCAR doesn't deserve to be there at all. So, Josh, I guess to follow up on that, is there an idea that maybe a track like IMS, and you can maybe throw Daytona in there as well with the carnage that we see of Daytona 500 every year? Is there the idea that these racetracks are so historic, they're so prestigious that we need to give them the respect that they deserve? And dive bombing someone 5 wide into turn 1 as 2 drivers try to take the access road to avoid it and cut the course, is that just embarrassing and making a mockery of, as Brandon said, the racing capital of the world?
Yeah, it's effectively it's horrible because I did watch the races when I eventually woke up this morning as well. I put it on and I watched the whole thing as well, and it was a okay little road course race, but it felt like we weren't at Indianapolis as well. This is NASCAR, for God's sake. You give it such a spectacle. You see Daytona, they're all packed in as well. Go to Indianapolis, and you used to seeing it all filled up with fans as well, and that was just embarrassing across the weekend as well. The 3 cars that went straight on to turn 1, I thought, oh, well, they forgot that they're on the road course, isn't there? That was ridiculous. And then we went into overtime. That last 15 minutes of that race was some of the worst racing I've ever seen in my life, and it's happened second year running now as well. I don't like it. I don't like that NASCAR sort of belittling themselves and belittling Indianapolis as well. It's not really fair. I've got the perfect solution as well to what we need to do. And I've been saying it for years now as well. You want to get people back to Indianapolis and to care about it as well with NASCAR being there. You do what you do for Indy 500. You limit the TV broadcast around Indiana and you put it on tape delay. That'll get the local fans into the circuit as well. But don't charge the earth for it. Slash the ticket prices. Make every ticket as cheap as you possibly can. Even if you can't make it, think, oh, well, we'll lose a bit of money. Don't care. Get the fans in those seats. Give the tickets away for free if you have to. Get them in there as well, and get these people viewing it, because they'll come back and they'll pay for it as well, because that track is huge and this racing with Gen 7 is fantastic. So slash the ticket prices, get the fans in. Also, run both weekends. One before, do the road course race like IndyCar do as well. And then the next week, have a whole week build up, put the practice midweek like we have with the Indy 500 as well, put qualifying on it on a special day as well, build up the hype. And then on Sunday, have the big main race. And here's a little thing for you. Remove the stages. Make the Brickyard 400 a 400-mile dash from green flag to checker flag. No caution flags for mandatory pit stops, nothing. No stage flags. Make it a classical race. Make it easy to understand for the people as well. Make it a one-off event as well. Keep the same points, just make it special. And because that's what it deserves. So I will also say do the same for Daytona. Remove the sprints at Daytona as well. But here at the Brickyard, run for 400 miles non-stop, because that is what it's mainly about. We don't see these stage flags in IndyCar for the 500 because it's all about the 500-mile dash. Let's do it for the Brickyard for 400. So to wrap up all this, slash the ticket prices, remove the stages, have 400 miles non-stop, and just go for it. Make the event needing for it, because I guarantee you drop the gimmicks and put it on pure racing in the heart of America racing, the racing capital of the world. You do that and pure racing, fans will come back massively. Just make it work.
That idea is so great, Josh. It'll never happen because their minds are so far gone. They're never going to get back to that point. That we've progressively over the years, we've moved one step at a time away from that golden era, and that idea is not coming back. They don't think that works anymore.
Get me running it.
Yeah. Let me tell you, Josh, even on Saturday on the pre-race show, I would have agreed 100% with everything you said. I'm going to have to take back and go on record here, because I said on Saturday's pre-race show I would not mind seeing both the road course and the oval on the schedule. I said, look, I get that you want more road courses. The next gen is supposed to be designed for road courses. You know, let's run the road course one week, let's run the oval the next, or let's have a doubleheader. I don't know how quickly you could get. I mean, it's IMS. I assume they could get the track converted pretty quickly. And
but we saw it a couple of years ago, didn't we? Because IndyCar ran the road course, and then the next day they ran the 400 on the oval. So pretty quick.
Yeah, we could do something like that. That's what I was thinking 2 days ago, and then we saw the race weekend, and I was willing to give it another chance. I said, well, you know, the whole thing last year with the curb coming up, as long as they make sure the curbs don't do that this year, you know, maybe we'll see a better race. Maybe drivers will treat it with a little bit more respect. That obviously did not happen, and I think at this point it's clear the road course was. I mean, let's be honest, the road course was designed to bring Formula One to the racing capital of the world. They haven't been there since 2007.
And it was a boring race anyway.
Yeah, and Josh, you can speak to that better than me, because you know, I my first year watching racing was 2007. I wouldn't get into F1 until several years down the road there. But I think, you know, we're going to have 3 races in America next year anyway, with this new race in Las Vegas coming in. So I think the ship has sailed in terms of Formula One being at IMS. If they were to bring bring F1 back to IMS, obviously you'd run it on the road course, but I think that's not going to happen for a very long time if it ever does. So maybe the road course, just generally speaking, I don't think the IndyCar races there have been that memorable either. I mean, you had the memorable standing start, but it was memorable for all the wrong reasons. The inaugural race in 2014 when Saavedra was on pole and stalled it, and I think a piece of debris even hit the mayor of Indianapolis that day. It was not a good look at all, and that's kind of been the tone that's been set for the IMS road course in recent years. So I just think, you know, if NASCAR is going to be at IMS, what's the point of being there if it's not going to be on the oval? You had obviously the whole debacle in 2008 with the oval, but I listen, I understand that you're probably not going to fill in, you know, 250,000 or 300,000 people ever again. That ship has sailed as well. But there's something special about winning. I mean, let me be clear. There's something special about winning any race at IMS. I'm sure Tyler Reddick, AJ Allmendinger winning last year. I don't want to take anything away from them, but you know, the oval just feels different. And I think you saw fans and drivers saying the same thing. It feels weird to be going the quote unquote wrong way in some
direction.
Yeah. Some drivers weren't even using the quotes. You're going the wrong direction down the main straightaway at IMS. It just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel the same. And the prestige isn't there for the Brickyard 400. But then there's the argument as well that the Brickyard 400 lost its luster. And I'll admit, I was saying this, as recently as 2019, 2020, you look at the empty grandstands, and it's not a good look for the Cup Series to only be bringing in, whatever it is, 40, 50,000 people in a place that seats 5 or 6 times that. It's not a good look for NASCAR to have that. The races haven't been that memorable. So what makes this race a crown jewel aside from the fact that it's at IMS? So you have to ensure that you're putting on a good show, but you're doing something to bring fans into the seats. Josh, you mentioned the blackout, which I think, kind of went away in the COVID era. I think now we've come out of that enough that maybe that could be considered bringing that back so that you give the local fans incentives to actually go out to the racetrack if they want to see the race that badly. So I think there's a lot to consider here. But I think it's worth giving the Brickyard 400 another try. If not next year, maybe, like we were saying, Brandon, give it a few years away. Give NASCAR a few years to just step away from IMS, let the dust settle. Fans will, start begging for it again, start reminiscing on the good old days. Maybe then you can bring it back. We'll see if a Gen 7 works out on the oval. But until then, the road course has been an absolute disaster. It's unbelievable to me that, I guess you can look at last year's race and this year's race, and I guess this year's race was better by default because the curb didn't come up. But that still doesn't say much with all the spins and all the disrespect out there that we saw. I mean, I don't want to throw Joey Logano under the bus because he was far from the only one, but when you have to turn left to avoid the curb on a 90-degree right-hander and you're taking it 5 wide, I don't know what you're thinking. I mean, he's a champion of our sport. He should know better than that. But that's the nature of stock car racing on road courses like this these days. The IMS road course was not made for stock cars. It was made for Formula One. They're gone. There's no point anymore. Put the race back on the oval if you're going to be there at all, because IRP's right down the road, and they put on a great show of the Truck Series. We'll get into that in a second as well. And the Xfinity Series never should have been there to begin with. They should have never left IRP themselves. So
right.
that's I think I covered every single angle there.
I'm afraid they're just not interested in trying the oval. I think the people who are making decisions seem to be burned out, and they seem like that's not even in their head right now. Like they think that's not what people want for some reason.
Well, the road course may be entertaining to the folks that like the carnage and like the controversy, but I think for the racing purists, it's borderline blasphemous to be going the wrong way down the main straight in a Cup car. And again, no disrespect to AJ Allmendinger, Tyler Reddick, and I know AJ was just over the moon to be in that photograph that was taken this week of all the winners in Indianapolis, and he deserves to be there because he won a stock car race at Indianapolis. He didn't make the schedule up because he's a road course expert and begged NASCAR to run the road course. He earned it. He deserves to be there. But at the same time, the NASCAR Cup Series, if they're going to be at IMS, I think it's clear at this point the oval is the way to go. But then again, in 2020, some fans were saying the Brickyard 400 was completely pointless, and that was just 2 years ago. So maybe we need to step away for a little bit and then come back. But we'll see what they choose to do going forward.
Maybe the 2020 sentiment of fans' reaction after that year is exactly why they're not even considering the notion of testing the Gen 7 on the oval at Indy. And that's probably why we just need to step away for a couple of years.
I think that's a fair point. They always say be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. Fans were begging for more road courses. And again, I'll admit I was among them.
Me included.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, when I say more road courses, I meant, Road America and tracks like that, which is now going to be taken off the schedule for the Chicago street circuit. I didn't mean necessarily a Charlotte Roval. I didn't mean, let's be honest. IMS is really a Roval. You're using the main straightaway of the oval track for an infield road course. It's not really the same as, a traditional road course would be. So, I appreciate that they're doing their best to mix the schedule up a little bit, and they are trying. They're making these changes. They're trying to mix things up, but some of it's just not working.
It's like I want road. I'm sorry. It's like I want road course. We have road course at home. Road course at home.
There you go.
And welcome everybody to the 2023 Daytona 500 on the road course. I honestly think if that ever happened, the policy of no weapons at NASCAR races would quickly be overturned. And I think the entire organization would suddenly find themselves fleeing for the Mexican border at this point, if that ever happened. Do not take it away. But I bet you it crossed their minds at one point putting the Daytona 500 on the road course, if it's crossed their minds to do this abomination at IMS.
Kobe saying, I love road course racing, but NASCAR still hasn't figured out how to officiate those races. That's another good point, Kobe. I'm glad you brought that up. The officiating on the road courses needs improvement.
Atrocious.
We want to see local yellows and everything, and adding it might turn off NASCAR fans from road courses. I think, Brandon, like you were saying, we were saying 2 road courses a year in a 36 race schedule is probably too few. I'm thinking maybe we're at the point now 6, 7 road course races might be too many. There might be a medium there between 4 or 5. That might be a better number, so that it's not that we just do it a couple times a year, but we're still primarily an oval series. It's not like IndyCar where it leans road courses and street courses over ovals, or it's in an ideal world it would be half and half. And of course, IndyCar has plenty of scheduling issues of their own right now. But
yeah, they have a few oval problem.
Yeah. You'd like to see more ovals on the IndyCar schedule, but I think NASCAR has always primarily been ovals. It should stay that way. The ratio might be swinging a little bit too far in the direction. Maybe 4 or 5 is where we should settle at. Make one of them a street course if you have to. Again, I'm kind of concerned about the Chicago layout, but we'll just have to wait and see. These are problems that you can't just fix in 1 year, so we'll give NASCAR some time. But the schedule is far from perfect right now, and they need to look at making some of those changes.